Hi, everyone. Just wanted to take a minute to talk about how to find the equation of a line given 2 points that are not necessarily the y-intercept. Um, so I think there's a couple important things to remember about this. And the first one, I believe, for us to really make sure we understand this well, is we need to make sure we know what the slope formula is. So it's the change in y over the change in x, rise over run. That's the same thing as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right. Oops, I missed the negative. I was off on that. All right. So what does this actually mean? It's just saying we're taking our two y coordinates and we're subtracting them, or we're taking our two x coordinates and subtracting them. It doesn't matter which one I call y2 and which one I call y1. I just then need to be consistent. So if I say this is y2, this has to be x1, x2. I say this is y1, this has to be x1, so on. As long as you're just consistent, it's fine. So first thing that we need to do in this particular problem is it's asking us to graph the line that passes through these points and then determine the equation of the line. All right, so we are actually given the x-intercept, which is, while nice, not inherently particularly helpful compared to any other point in determining the equation of the line. So I just plotted the points there, 8, 5. Now, if this had been the y-intercept, this would have been a lot more straightforward because I could have automatically written what my b is, and my y equals mx plus b, right? Sadly, we're given the x-intercept. So now what do we need to do? Well, number one, we need two things for our equation of a line. We need our y-intercept, which you can actually see graphically, and we also need our slope. Now, I'm going to go through the effort of doing it algebraically so you can see how to do it algebraically, but also understand that in this particular problem, it's given a graph. So you can see what the y-intercept is going to be. But you never know if it's always going to be exactly on or anything like that, so it's good to make sure you understand how to do this algebraically. All right, so let's first of all calculate our slope. So I'm going to just say this is x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, so 8. Oops, I'm sorry, not 8. I already just fell into the big trap of slope of accidentally putting the x in the numerator. So 5 minus 0 over 8 minus 4. All right, so I ultimately get 5 over 4, which makes sense here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So clearly that is going to be the slope. So now what you can actually do with that is you can determine the y-intercept algebraically. So if I just plug in this, at this point I have this much of the equation. I have 5/4 x plus, and I don't know what my b is, so I'm going to leave it as b, my y-intercept. Now, obviously I can see it's going to be -5, but how do I actually solve for that if I don't have my graph? Well, what I can do is, number one, I suppose I could graph it. Or number two, I can plug in one of the points I already have. Now, there's a couple options here. I can either plug in the 4, 0, or I could plug in the 8, 5. What's my recommendation going to be? To pick the easiest point, right? So clearly there's one with a 0. Zeros are great. Who doesn't love working with a 0? So I recommend the one with the 0. There's nothing wrong, and you can use the 8 and the 5. However, the 4 and the 0 are easier. So let's plug in the 4 and the 0. So my x is 4, and my y is now 0. So 0, because I'm just replacing the y with 0, is 5 divided by 4 times 4 plus b. The other nice thing about this is the 4 and the 4 just cancel, and I get nothing left behind. So if you had something like, I don't know, 3 here, it wouldn't have nicely canceled. So I might have actually gone for the 8, 5 because it nicely would have canceled. So those are some other things to consider when you're picking your points. Think about what will cancel with the denominator. So I get 0 is equal to 5. plus b, because again, those cancel out, minus 5, minus 5. And then clearly my b, as we had saw in the graph, is negative 5. So therefore, the equation of my line is y equals 5/4. I just did the slash sign to get that. Or if you have a computer, or if you have a phone, you use the division symbol, minus 5. And we'll submit. Double check that just to confirm. All right, we're good. Let's do a new problem just to make sure we're all good. Interesting. All right, let's look at this one. So we are not given any intercepts. That's positive. But you're going to see something right away when I graph it. So we go to -4, -1. Okay, -4, 2. All right, the line I just showed right there, it's vertical. And if you recall, vertical lines are have a slope that is undefined. So really all I need to do here is just write my x equals my x value. So remember, when you have a vertical line, the slope is undefined. So you don't even worry about the y equals mx plus b, because it's not going to be in that form. That would be if you had the diagonal line. If you had a horizontal line, you'd have y equals whatever the y value is that it goes through. And now when you have vertical, you do x equals whatever the x value is going through, which is going through -4. So x is equal to -4. Okay. All right, now that one was really quick. Let's do another one that is not going to be that. Let's do one, hopefully, that doesn't have the... No, it's not doing that. Okay, let's do some... No. All right, let's do this problem. So sorry, I just went through several of them. There was a couple that one had the y-intercept, so I didn't worry about that one because you can just identify the y-intercept immediately. A couple of the other ones were either vertical or horizontal, and we had just gone through what that means. So let's do this one. And I am not going to graph it first. I'm going to graph it after. So let's go over first what we would do. Again, we would stick with finding the slope. So I'm just going to do, I don't know, -4 minus 8, 1 minus 5, -12 over -4, which is 3. Okay. Now, that means I have y equals 3x plus b. Now, you're probably looking and asking yourself, is there actually an easier point in this one? Nothing cancels because there's no fraction. Nothing has a 0. So inherently, no one point is not necessarily easier than the other in terms of like canceling fractions or giving us a 0. That being said, I'm going to stick with this one just because it has slightly smaller numbers. So that's just a little thought process I go through of, do I have to multiply to make something really big? Because I don't want to. So let's plug that in. -4 is equal to 3 times 1 plus b. All right, so I get -4 is equal to 3 plus b. So -7 is what my b is. So that would ultimately mean that my y equals 3x minus 7. Now, let's just graph those points and make sure that we're all set. So we went over to 5, up to 8. We went over to 1, down to -4. Now you can see just from the fact that we are, now that we've graphed it, you can see we would have gone through -7. We go up 1, 2, 3 over 1. So that looks like our slope is good. So let's just check it to be certain. 3x minus 7. All right, plug it in, and we're all good. All right, I hope everybody